Greetings, YouTube. The doctor is in. Dr. Urius Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Dungeons and Dragons, and it is time for another installment of our old school review. We are on G3, Hall of the Fire Giant King, released in 1978. This is the third adventure published by TSR. Gary Gygax wrote this, says right there by Gary Gygax. I got a little thing in the map. We are only going to be doing level 1 in this. This is, even though this module is a whopping 22 pages long, and it's not even 22 pages long, it's like 18 pages long. The maps are, each one of the maps looks like this map. It's got almost as many rooms in each one, and, you know, Gary had a very short format style of writing rooms. Didn't write a lot of stat blocks in the creatures. You know, put the most pertinent information in, just a quick stat block like the monster and its hit points, and that was it. You know, the DM it was up to the DM for the rest of it. So he could crank out a lot of material in a very short dungeon. This dungeon actually would take a group of like 5 players, probably, if you played once a week for, I would say 2 or 3 months, you probably would get through it. You know, with each session being about 4 hours, you would get through this. All right, let's talk about the introduction and level 1. So it is Dungeon Module G3, Hall of the Fire Giant King, official D&D tournament module used at Origins 1978. We've got the obligatory TSR P.O. Box 756, Lake Geneva, Wisconsin 53147 address, and you could send them a letter, etc., etc., and it says this module contains background information, referees' notes, because they called them referees at the time. 3 level maps, because the Dungeon Master's Guide at this point hadn't come out yet. Only the Monster Manual and the Player's Handbook got released this year. So they hadn't really kind of officially called them Dungeon Masters at this point. They were referees. So it's got 3 levels. And Exploration Matrix Keys provides a complete module for play of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, and it can be played alone or as the last of a 3-part expedition, which also employs Dungeon Modules G1, Steading of the Hill Giant Chief, and Dungeon Module G2, Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl. If you enjoyed these modules, watch for the release of the next D1 through D3, Descent into the Depths of the Earth, which continues where this series ends. And it's not really, so these series go G1, 2, 3, and then D1, 2, 3, and then there was another one that they released, which we're not going to talk about, because if you don't like spoilers, I'm not gonna give it away. But eventually we're going to get to the evil geniuses behind all of the giants. All right, let's expand this out, and we're going to go to the next page here. Here's the map. You can see the map over on the side. It's a big map. Each square in the map, again, is 10 feet. 1 square equals 10 feet. And, I mean, typically, Gary put these on graph paper, and then they print them out the way they're supposed to. We got pillars. We got doors. The A's and the B's and such denote probably creatures in these. We've got curtains. And so forth and such. All right, and then we've got our intro page, which is the same as the cover. Remember, these covers came off. So you would get the little pamphlet inside of this hard cardboard cover, and that would be what you would this would be the front page of the actual dungeon module pamphlet. This would be on the inside of the front cover, and this would be the front cover that you would see. And then the second level would be on the back, and there's actually a third level in this. So there's a third map that was attached, I believe, to the back of the pamphlet. Okay, so we've got our background. Let me move this map over. I got to remember to do that here. So first sentence is always kind of the most important one. It kind of tells you what's going on. Just as the trail led from the steading of the Hill Giant Chief, that was G1, to the frozen wastes where was found the glacial rift of the Frost Giant Jarl, that's G2. That had 2 levels. The steading of the Hill Giant Chief had 2 levels. So the adventure in the latter place, which is the Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl, led or transported, because there was a way to teleport from the Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl to the Hall of the Fire Giant King. The intrepid party, what they hope will be their last challenge, but it is not going to be their last challenge, as we will find out. So they are about to venture into the hot and smoking barrens, which are in effect Muspelheim, which is the land of the fire giants, the home of the fire giants. Okay, so that is kind of our intro. In the world of Greyhawk, this is in the middle of the Hell Furnaces, whereas the Frost Giants are in the Crystal Mist Mountains, and the Hill Giants are in, I believe it's either Steric or Jeff, one of those two areas. So, but this is kind of before all that kind of Greyhawk stuff came out, so Gary kind of left it open. You could dump it into whatever world you wanted. So, let's see here. We've got a mention of Muspelheim, which is not, that's like another plane. It's got tones of that, but it is not actually that. And then in the next sentence, in the vast rocky halls of the fire giants, doughty liege lord, and then we get the name. So we got the name of every one of these. King Snur Ironbelly is the king of the fire giants. They hope to find both the answer to the riddle of what or who is behind the strange alliance of many different types of giants, as well as a great treasure. So he always alludes in here that the giants don't necessarily get along. And and no one has ever seen them get together and attack civilization together. And all of a sudden, we've got collections of hill giants and frost giants and fire giants and stone giants and cloud giants and ogres and ettins and all kinds of beasts attacking together in unison against civilization, wherever that is in your world. And we've had these allusions and clues. There have been clues in G1 and G2 alluding to some kind of power or evil genius behind the attacks that the giants are initiating. So we've got this mastermind behind all of this. So, and again, it alludes to that. Surely here in the stronghold of the fire giants will be encountered the evil genius or genii. I think he meant to say geniuses, I guess, I don't know. Controlling the uprising and planning the well-executed attacks, for Snur is said to be far stronger than he is smart. So he's an idiot, but we've got some power behind him. Gary loves to throw these kind of words in here. As I find them, I will kind of pick them out. And then we go through the rest of it. And then we go through our cautionary note, and the cautionary note says what kinds of PCs to do. So, there always is a kind of administrative guideline as to how many characters. So, no character below 6th level should venture in the Hall of the Fire Giant King. Characters under 9th level should be accompanied by a number of higher level characters. The optimum mix depends on the class of the characters involved. A party of 3 or more might be well off as 3 or 4 times the number under certain circumstances. This writer, which is Gary Gygax, still believes that a mixed group with clerics, fighters, magic users, and thieves, so he's calling out the 4 different classes, with a dwarf, an elf, and perhaps a halfling, gnome, or half-elf. Now remember, the player's handbook had just kind of come out, but before that, dwarves, elves, halflings, and gnomes, and half-elves were kind of their own class in basic Dungeons & Dragons. And Advanced Dungeons & Dragons was the first time that we got the introduction of a race with a class. And yes, I'm going to say the word race, because that's what they are. So we got the word, you picked a race, and then you picked a class. So you could have a dwarven cleric, you could have a dwarven fighter, a dwarven magic user, dwarven thief, etc., etc. So, and it says will be the most successful overall if their average level is 9th. And there are 8 to 10 in the party. Gary loved to have these gigantic games of players. So he's saying 8 to 10, 9th level characters on average. And this, of course, assumes that each member will be armed with several magic items useful against giants and fire. So that is kind of our introduction to this. Now, it gives a kind of the background of the start. You might have arrived before the huge obsidian valves, which bar the entrance to the hall by means of the transporter found in the lair of the frost giant Jarl. So as you went through the last room, there was a teleporter that was there that teleports you essentially like 50 or 60 feet in front of the doors. Or, Gary says, if the group journeyed hence by some other means, horseback mounted hippogriffs. So that was the first time he's ever mentioned that. And he says that they will have noted, if they had traveled, they will have noted a place about 2 miles distant from Snur's sooty palace. But if they appeared here, they're just going to appear in front of the doors. And they won't know that there is a kind of place some 2 miles away that's a refuge. So this hidden refuge will prove to be safe from detection as long as the party leaves no plain trait to it, and as long as they are not allowed, are not followed to it. So, and this is the first time this happened here, this sentence. So, if they thrice venture forth from the cave to raid the fire giant hall. So, if they go in and come out, go in, come out, go in, come out, that's 3 times. There is a 10% cumulative chance per additional raid. So, on the 4th, it's 10%. On the 5th, it's 20%, so on. That the giants are going to come looking for them. And in the Hill Giant module, that was not the case. And in the Fire Giant module, that was not the case. But in this adventure, the Fire Giants are organized and smart enough to know that they can come after the players. So let's see here. What else do I have? So the refuge, 2 miles away, cumulative chance. The refuge is a cave at the bottom of a ravine that leads to the hall. So we've got this ravine where there's a cave, and it's a big ravine. It's a couple miles long, and it eventually leads back to the hall. So let's move this over here. And we have not actually gotten into the adventure yet. So you can see kind of why we're going to do this one level at a time, because this is a pretty long one. So there are no guards present at the door during the first foray. So now one thing I do want to note is the gates here are massive. And if we go down to the bottom here, and I can get this. So the ravine, blah, 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 blah. Well-trod path leading up to 2 great slabs of black stone obsidian. Portals which give access to Snur's Hall, but these gates will open to the party if one of their members has a fire giant strength or greater, or a chime of opening, or one of them can cast a knock spell. And each one is 29 feet tall, 10 feet wide, and no less than 3 feet thick. The plain about is most evil and drab. The sky is gray and filled with sooty clouds, and there's a volcano in the background. So you should point that out to your players so they know that there's this volcano there, and there is a danger that that thing could erupt at any moment. So the ground is full of cinders, sharp grass. The place is lit at night with dim red. On the second and any successive raids upon the palace, there is a 50% likelihood that the gates will be ajar, and some guard will be watching for attackers in order to alert. So that's after the second one, not the first one. So there's not going to be a guard there on the first one. And then there are notes for the Dungeon Master. A lot of really good kind of material in here, especially in this paragraph right here of Gary going through and giving you tips on how to be a Dungeon Master. And saying that the giants will react appropriately once they detect the PCs. So, kind of goes through the levels here, outside, the upper 2 levels, what they're made of, all of the dark gray, reddish black material like the basalt and obsidian and everything. The lower levels is mostly natural. And then the advice we're given. And eventually, this is the first time he's used this word here, the dro. So there's going to be more information as we come through this. Okay, let's switch this over to this side now because we're going to the next page. It says, remember also that these giants are both the toughest so far encountered and that they have the best advice immediately available to them. As soon as the party strikes and then retires, the attack will be assessed and countermeasures taken. Some notes to this effect will be found in the matrices for each level, but you will have to design some reactions personally. So these giants are set up to come after the PCs. So when the party retires from the hall, the giants will lay whatever traps and ambushes they are able to under the circumstances. Lights will be put out. Sentries will be posted and so forth because these giants have dark vision. Remember that. And if you're playing this, if you've converted this over to Shadow Dark, that's an important key because it should increase the likelihood and frequency of random encounters. So in the playtest version, I had the giants who survived the first foray by the party set several ambushes, each surprise being set to allow them to retire quickly behind a turn in a passage or through doors, gradually falling back on the corridor to the second level. However, even the females and young fought as the king had so ordered, and I assumed that their fear of him and the drow was greater than their fear of the party, or at least equal. So they're gonna fight. We got more giant contents in the bag, new giant bag. So each one of these modules came with a giant bag. I noticed that I'll put that guy over there. I noticed that WotC has grabbed onto the giant bag because they move the giant bag forward into their own giant module. And a lot of the contents are very similar. All right, so now we're actually going to get into the adventure itself. So we finally get up. There's always a wandering monster table with an encounter that is a 1 in 12 chance every turn, which is every 10 minutes, and it's mostly fire giants. There's one in here that includes a cloud giant, a frost giant, and a stone giant, and these are just visitors walking around in the area. And then we start getting into the encounters. So encounter 1 is going to start on the map there at the doors. And so you can see that right there on the map that I've got. Let's move this over just a little bit so you can see that right on the map. And we've got a great bronze horn here, right here as a warning. So, and if the PCs come in a second time, there's going to be a ballista and guards. So they say that right here. If the party severely defeats the giants in the hall, a ballista will be set up at the far end of the hall in anticipation of a second raid. So just keep that in mind. Then we get to number 2, which is going to be the grand hall. And in here of note, the fire giants are using Ettins as guards because Ettins apparently cannot be surprised. So, and each is armed with a huge morning star of black metal, which is not magical, but it does give them a bonus to hit and damage. Then we get to number 3, which is the throne room. So this is one thing I didn't like about this adventure is Snur is actually here. So crouching beside either arm of the throne are 2 large hellhounds, which are the king's constant companions. King Snur himself is seated upon the black seat of the throne. So in room number 3, which is really in the back of room number 2, the throne area, we get the king right away. Now, I would have him, take off because he's an idiot, but he is a cowardly idiot. And, maybe he starts the fighting thinking they can take the PCs out. And once things start to go badly, I would have him take off. And I would have him sacrifice his own folks. So we've got him here very early for the PCs to encounter him. It could be very deadly. There's a whole bunch of treasure that's inlaid into this throne here. He's got 4 fire giants with him, plus the 2 Ettins up there, and he's got these hellhounds with him. And so Snur is clad in black armor. Let's move this over here. And he has a huge 2-handed sword which has flames along its blades when swung, and it's +4 to hit and +6 to damage. The sword is +4 to hit, +6 to damage, and he fights as a storm giant. So you would use his hit die, and his weapon does 7 to 42 points of damage, plus 4 to hit, and plus 6 to damage, that's in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, that's pretty massive. When he is armed with a sword, otherwise he fights as a cloud giant if he doesn't have his sword, and then he wears this necklace that's got all these coral skulls on it, and he's got all these garnets. So he's got a bunch of different stuff on there. He is clad in a cloak of white dragon hide, which gives him a +3 saving throw against cold-based attacks and reduces cold damage by 50%. And then he wears this crown that's got a bunch of stuff on it, too. And he's got a bag. That's another thing. And then we move to the Chamber of the Queen's Serving Maids, which there are 4 giantesses in here waiting in the hallway and 4 giantesses in the chamber. And this is chamber number 4, which is on the back end of the throne hall. Then we get to Queen Fruppy's chamber. So Queen Fruppy is the queen. And Gary goes through a very kind of detailed description of the queen. She's a veritable harridan. And I looked that word up because I had not seen that word before. He loved that. I think he would pick stuff out of the dictionary. It is a word that means hag. So she is a veritable harridan, a sly and cunning whore. She is, if anything, uglier than Snur. So Snur obviously is ugly. Topped by a huge mass of yellow-orange hair, which looks like a fright wig, Queen Fruppy's face is a mass of jowls and wrinkles, set in the middle of a very large head, which sits squarely on her shoulders. Her body is lumpy and gross, and her skin is covered with bristles, the color of her hair. Her little pig eyes, however, are bright with intelligence unusual in a giant. And then she's got black dragon hide garments set with iron studs, so she, looks, that probably is pretty off-putting. Gives her an effective armor class of 2, which the lower in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, the better. She fights as a normal fire giant male, but has a bonus of +2 to hit and +4 to damage when she scores a hit. Then she's got some jewelry, and then any intruders entering are commanded to kneel, and then she just starts wailing on them. So it's a fight immediately. And then she's got a bunch of different casks, and that all have different treasure in them. Let's move this over here. We'll put it close to the middle here. And then we go back to the top. Platinum pieces. A jade box that's got stuff in it. Has a scroll with 2 random 7th level spells. Mentions druid here. And druid was not easy to do. I think you kind of had to start out as a cleric. And then if it's open, a cloud of fire will englobe all, doing 6 dice of damage. This is 6d6. And then there's some potions and things in a drawer here. Then we get to number 6, which is a chamber of guards, king's guard, so fire giants. We're still on. If we look at the map here, we're still in these back like apartment chambers. And then we get to number 7, which is King Snur's private quarters. He's got 6 hellhounds in here. They kind of roam the outer hall. And then we've got the bed chamber, and he goes into a lot of detail about the chamber. And he's got all sides he's got a ledge with a bunch of skulls on it. Human, dwarf, elven, giant, and other various and sundry monsters and creatures. Helmets and armor and weapons and pelts and all kinds of stuff. They have these flaming jets of gas and huge iron braziers full of glowing coals that light. These lights are kind of everywhere. In the Frost Giant module, we had fire beetles that were inside of like cages that gave light. Here we've got these flaming jets because it's gas that's coming out from the volcano. And then there's a secret door in the back, and the secret door in the back will go to rooms 8 and 9. So room 8, let's move this over here. Room 8 is just as cave, but it is a place where he has a 10-headed pyrohydra, and it's vicious because the king beats it and torments it, and it hopes to take revenge on virtually any living thing. So it attacks immediately. So it's not really his pet. He's got it in here, and he just kind of tortures it. And then we get to number 9. So it's kind of the guard, I guess. It's the guard for the treasure chamber, which is number 9. So we get to number 9, which is the chamber, and there's lots of chests and trunks and all kinds of stuff in here. There are 8 trunks, 6 chests, and 5 large coffers. And some of them are trapped and some of them are not. And then they have the contents. So he's got a table here with trunk 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then whether they have a trap in them or not, or whether they're locked and what's in them. So we've got blade in lid, chops down as a fire giant, does damage. We've got asps, and this is asp poison. Poison was very bad in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Usually it killed you just outright, and they're invisible. And it hides all the contents. We got weakness gas, and we've got potions. Acid squirt, spikes that come out. And then we've got, and that was in a chest. And then we go back up here to more chests and coffers. Now, the big one is coffer number 1. That's a big one. One thing I do want to point out, in chest number 6, we've got this black cloak, 1 pair of black boots, man-sized, and has a 75% chance to be invisible or move silently in dungeons. Are these magical? It doesn't really say whether they are or not. So, I'm not sure. Then we've got this coffer, and this coffer is full of gold rings, 72 of them. But the big thing about this is one of them is a ring of protection +3. One of them is a ring of contrariness, which is a cursed item. One of them is a ring of elemental command of water or water elementals. One of them is a ring of delusion with contact poison. Again, poison was pretty deadly, and this is a cursed item as well. And then there is another ring of 3 wishes. We had one of these in the Frost Giant Jarl module too, G2. So another ring of 3 wishes. So that is the second time we've seen that, which is pretty awesome. And then in coffer number 4, we've got the 7 highly carved statues of unknown mineral and workmanship. Each statue idol brings a cumulative -1/+1 curse to its possessor when it is carried. So these are cursed. It doesn't really say, like, they're cursed statues of what? Of who? Is it an evil god? Is it a demon? Is it a devil? It doesn't really say. But again, Gary kind of wrote this kind of stuff in here for the Dungeon Master to fill in the blanks. All radiate a dim evil force, so you could fill in those blanks. And, okay, and then et cetera, et cetera. And here we have a picture of the coffer with all the rings. So that's a thing there. And then we're going to go to the next page, and we will go to 10, which is the arsenal room in 10B. So we got 2 fire giants here. We're on the hall area north of where the pyrohydra was and the treasure room was. We've got a -2 shield of missile attraction, another cursed item. Gary loved to put cursed items into these adventures. Loved it. Okay? And then we've got in room number 11, so we are now still in that area. We've got the Chimera Pen. The fire giants keep a large chimera here, only one. This creature will attack on sight. It hates anyone except fire giants. So it is a pet guard of Snur himself. Then we get into the 12 area. So 12, 13, and 14. He kind of grouped all these rooms into like little areas. And if you've ever gone through the Dungeon Master's Guide, which was published after this, I think it was the year after this, the Dungeon Master's Guide has tables in it in the back on how to make a dungeon, like how to actually draw it. It'll say roll percentage dice, and you got a hallway, and the hallway turns to the left, and then you keep rolling and you keep adding. So in number 12, our 8 Knoll servants, bodyguards, are lounging here, for they obey only the commands of the advisor. And we learn who the advisor is. This is an actual special person, or the king or queen. So this is something that is new. And then he describes the chamber. And gnolls should be very easy for characters at this level to take out. There's a chest in here with treasure. And the advisor is a grossly fat but very strong and quite fast renegade mountain dwarf, one Obmi. And he is in his Spartan study. So that is in 12B. And so we've got some stats for him here. He's very strong, 1894 strength, 1800 was the strongest. He's got a lot of hit points, very intelligent, very wise, very dexterous, has a high constitution and a really high charisma, and he is a fighter thief. He's 20th level. 20th level, he is 9th level fighter, 11th level thief. And it wasn't really considered 20th level at that time. So he is herein at work on the problems besetting the king. He has been Snur's advisor for 25 years, spending 5 as a slave before that. He is armed only, so he's been here for 30 years, but he was a slave for 5. He's armed only with a dagger hidden in his boot, hard at several scrolls on the plain wooden desk in the room. There is a case against the north wall which contains various maps, scrolls, etc., all written in Fire Giant or Dwarvish. He uses a plain wooden box as a footstool and seemingly holds old clothes of his as a false bottom. It's got treasure in it. So the door to the study appears to be locked from the outside. Obmi is very clever, and he's got a peephole, and he sees intruders. So once you get in a fight with the gnolls, he's going to know. The dwarf will claim that the giants have held him, a prince, captive for 10 years, trying to trick information out of him or to subvert his loyalty to the dwarfdom when torture failed. So he has a very high charisma and should be very good at lying. So he will further claim that several humans in black robes aid the giants in their questioning. These are actually drow. Finally, he will ask to be allowed his armor and weapons in order to gain sweet revenge upon Snur, for he knows exactly where the king will be. If worse comes to worse, Obmi will bolt for room B and bar the door. So, and then here's his chamber. And he's got +2 armor, +2 shield, a +1 axe, a +3 hammer. He's got gauntlets of ogre power. So I'm shocked he's not wearing this stuff. And he's got a ring of invisibility. Let's move the map over again. And upon entering the room, he will palm the ring, don the armor, put on the gauntlets, thong the axe to his belt, heft the hammer, and hold the shield. At first opportunity, he will attack the party and raise a hue and cry for help, but he will do so only when he knows help will be able to come. He knows a bit about the drow, and he will bargain that or anything else to save his life. If faced with no quarter to be given, he will fight to the very end. So he's pretty loyal to Snur and the Fire Giants. But he's got some good stuff, and, you know, there's a little bit of backstory behind him. And the main fact is that he knows about the drow. All right, then we got 13, and in 13A, this is his council room. We've got these batons, so 6 bone batons with runes of Fire Giant upon them. Each is a pass saying, official business on behalf of the King Snur the Fearsome. So maybe players can get a hold of this if they can disguise themselves and they can use this somehow. I'm not really sure. And then we come into 13B, and there's a big thing in here. There's a bunch of scrolls here and pieces of parchment. The 68th scroll tube contains a set of instructions for the king, telling him to gather forces of hill, stone, frost, and fire giants, along with whatever strength he can raise, and ogres, ogre magi, cloud giants, and any other creatures for an all-out attack on the provinces to the east and northeast. But in the world of Greyhawk, these are east and northeast. So it's Jeff and Steric and the Yeomanry. And I think Gary kind of had Greyhawk in his head already when he wrote this. The scroll promises powerful help from Drow, and it is signed Eklavdra, and we've seen this before. We saw that name in G1, the steading of the Hill Giant Chief. So, and then the various papers are message copies to and replies from various types of giants and other already mentioned above. One says the Fire Giant of stone left and left elbow. I'm not really sure, in dwarf. So I'm not sure what that means, but it's some kind of riddle. And this is this keeps the players on the path of the, kind of tells them who the evil genius is. It's the Drow and whoever this Eklavda person is. And it is telling him, as he is assuming the role as king of the giants, to put these groups together. 14, we've got 2 fire giants that are standing guard. In 15, we've got the kitchen. Again, these are 2 rooms that are in their little area themselves. 16 is a storage chamber with a whole bunch of stuff. Sausages and cheese and smoked fish and smoked sides of meat and hampers and sacks and boxes and salt and spices and copper container and wine and beer and all kinds of stuff. Gary loved to give explanations of normal, mundane stuff. Then we get to 17 and 18. So 17 is a guest chamber, and it has the doors to this room are closed on the outside by a great bar. So that should spark something in the players when they come up to it. As King Snur does not fully trust the Rakshasas, which are devils, who are guests therein. And remember, the fire giants do have some things to do with devils. So there's Rakshasas here. They will see these 3 creatures as trusted friends and associates. So maybe the Rakshasas will hear them open the doors and they can change shape. There's beds, a footstool, in reality a chest, which is an illusion. That's why it's in bold. Tapestries and treasure. Always put a lot of treasure into his things. Here we got a picture, art piece of a fire giant that's fighting the players, hellhounds. This looks like a fireball, maybe. Not sure why they would do that, but and then we've got potions and scrolls in with the Rakshasas. Then we get to room 18, which is just north of where the Rakshasas are, which are barracks. Currently only 6 fire giants are housed here, and it's kind of a cave, which I didn't really get. It's a cave, but it's barracks, cots, stools, hampers, etc., but 6 fire giants are here. Then we get into 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, which is the giantesses' quarters. So we've got 8 fire giantesses here, and with cots and such. In 20, we've got 5 giantesses who care for 15 young giants and giantesses. So these things look like they're about as strong as ogres, and these obviously are about as strong as frost giants, probably. There's cots and stuff. Then we've got the entry hall in 21, which goes to the kennel, where there are 6 young hellhounds here. And then we've got 22, which is the large kennel for the hellhounds here. And there are 4 large and 2 medium hellhounds. And he kind of separated these by hit die and hit points. And on the map, it's kind of hard to see. But yes, there as we come into 21 and 22, and then there's a 23, which is it's the kennel keeper's quarters. And the keeper is here with his wife. It doesn't really say what her name is. His name is the keeper. And they're both fire giants. And he fights a little bit better. They've got some barrels and crates and torches and dried meat and stuff. And they've got 4 javelins of lightning and a -2 cursed sword here. Another cursed item. I think that was like the 5th cursed item we've had in here. Finally, we get to room 24 and 25. So 24 is the end of this hallway. It's a guard post. There's 2 giants here at all times. And then we finally get to 25, which is the last room here, which is 8 fire giants are gaming and loafing. It's another barracks room. There's a +3 battle axe here. Now, the way down in this is we've got a way down in between room 17 and 18, and it looks like room 15. So if we go back to room 15, it looks like there is a pit that goes down. The area to the east is a natural fire pit where flaming gases are used to roast whole creatures. The circle to the northwest indicates where a 6-foot diameter chute goes down to the lava pool on level 2. So there's a little tunnel, and it goes down in this chute. It is slippery and greasy from garbage, and it empties 2 feet above the lava. The servants and gnolls will fight only under the direction of the matron. So this is the kitchen. So in the kitchen, they're throwing stuff down this chute, which goes to this lake of lava that's on the 2nd level. But there actually is a tunnel that goes down between 17 and 18 over in this area that goes down to level 2. So So essentially, that is level 1. And I've been yammering on long enough, and we will continue with a second video of level number 2. I hope everybody enjoyed, and I will catch everybody later.